Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Syama Ashrama in Cali, Colombia. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show and welcome to Walk on Wednesday. And it seems like we were here just a moment ago with Sri Govinda, but we are here today on Walk on Wednesday with Shyamasundari Devi. She's the head of the ashram. And if you're new to Walk on Wednesday, it's a day where we interview just for like 5 or 10 minutes a person who we think is very cool and clever. And today you are that cool and clever person, Shyamasundari. Now she doesn't talk so much. We're gonna have to like poke her. We're gonna have to poke her. But maybe you can just tell us a little bit about how you ended up here. You're from Colombia, but how did you end up starting this ashram?
Well, I didn't start it.
Wait a second, you gotta come real close.
I really consider I didn't start it. Sometimes we say, no, I was a puppet in Krishna's hand. And we hear them say, yeah. But I really was a puppet in Krishna's hand. I didn't know.
A puppet.
Puppet, yeah.
Okay.
And it was opened by Krishna.
It was opened by Krishna. Yeah. That's the backstory. It's opened by Krishna. Okay, we're gonna bring on Krishna now for Walk on Wednesday. I thought she had something to do with this.
I can tell his story in relation to the ashram. But it was I met a devotee. I met a devotee like 10 years ago.
Krishna.
You see, he doesn't want me to speak.
He does. He really does.
So you were a yogi.
I was a yogi.
Okay.
Practicing yoga many years ago, since I was 13.
Since you were 13, okay.
Yeah. And I was like in this spiritual search, but I really didn't feel I was, after 15 years practicing yoga and doing all the asanas and being vegetarian and being in the mood of goodness, but I didn't feel I was spiritual. There's something missing. I had many questions about God, like, okay, who is God? But I was not finding all those questions I had when I was young. And I found the Bhagavad Gita, and I met a devotee that started teaching me the Bhagavad Gita. And I started to understand, okay, Krishna, this is God, sounds cool. There's a way to connect to God in a more personal way. And then by studying and entering a little bit in the consciousness of Krishna, the devotee told me once, you know what? I have a deity.
A deity?
I have deities.
Deities, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I need translation.
It's okay, it's good.
And he said, I was traveling with these beautiful deities across America with 2 Belgian horses pulling a wagon with these beautiful deities, ornithide deities. And we walked like 14,000 miles from Pennsylvania to Florida, from Florida to Mexico. They crossed Central America. Then they flew from Panama to Colombia because there's no roads. They flew, they took the horses.
They flew the horse?
The horses, the wagon, and the devotees who were walking with the deities. They flew the horses, yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Flew a horse. I didn't even know you could.
They put them in a plane, cargo plane.
So anyway, this is called, I just want to jump in here. This is called Patiatra. It's traditional in India where you walk with like and
Bullock
instead of
cart.
somebody, a bullock cart with a bull carrying your stuff, and you just walk and you just chant and sing.
Yeah.
And you, and this person this devotee was doing it in all over America and now Central America.
Yeah.
And ended up in South America.
Yeah. And then he said, and I had an accident. I broke my back. And
He broke his back.
He broke his back in an accident on the roads. And he said, and since then, I had to leave the deities with other devotees, and I came back to Colombia to recover. And since then, I haven't seen them, and I haven't, you know, I would like to, because I don't have a place where to worship them.
Huh.
And I said, okay, sounds like interesting. What about if we just find a place and you bring the deities? So yeah. So I remember I made just one phone call to the realtor.
Yeah. It's good.
And he said, okay, what you need? I said, well, what we need, I don't know, maybe like it can be a simple house with enough land and maybe a river crossing the land, and maybe, I don't know, trees, fruit trees, and a nice place. And in this area, specific area, I said, okay, I have one place. She said, let's go look at it. And we came, I remember we opened the gate and said, okay, this is the place.
Mm.
This it is. And so I rented the place, and then my friend, okay, let's go.
Were you were planning on you getting it just for the deities or to do a yoga school
it was
here?
Primarily for the deities. I had a yoga studio then. It was for the deities. And then we went by car to pick up the deities in Ecuador. They were in Ecuador.
In Ecuador.
Yeah, in Ecuador. And I remember, well, there's many mystical stories going to pick them up. And I remember we arrived at the devotees' house where they were taking care of them. And this was the first time I saw deities.
You never saw any deity before?
No.
And you bought a piece of property just to take care of them?
Yeah. This was my first time. And I remember I entered with
You must have really believed in this guy. Right?
Maybe.
I mean, he must have made a big impression on you.
I think it was the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay. Bhagavad Gita.
And I remember we entered where the deities were standing, and this devotee, like, he lay flat on the ground crying. And I was, what is going on?
Can't figure that out, right?
What's going on? I was so impressed. Like, I can't understand what's going on, but okay, we're going to take these beautiful deities. I don't know who they are, like, and we're going to take them home. But the devotees who were taking care of them were like so attached to them, so attached that the car we were driving broke. And we had to stay like for 3 weeks there.
Wow. Okay, continue. I want to hear how you got back.
Well, we fixed the car and finally we got back, but it was okay. There's many stories just coming to my mind, but that will take us too long. And then they came to the ashram, came here, and then we opened Syama Ashram. And they stay here like for 3 years.
And where are they?
They disappeared.
They disappeared. Now we all want to see these deities.
Wait, who are the deities? Why are the deities?
No, so the devotee, after 3 years, he left the ashram. was time for him to continue
Journey.
his journey,
And he took the deities.
he took the deities,
Aw.
and oh, the story is long, and but you want to hear about how they disappear, right?
How they left after 3 years because he went on with his journeys.
Yeah.
But you had at that point you'd already established like an ashram here.
Yeah. So I continue with all the programs, all the morning and pujas and everything as they were there.
Gotcha. Do you have deities?
I no, at that point I had just a picture of
Just a
them.
picture.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then months later, I was heartbroken because they left.
So you develop attachment to deities. I mean, that in itself is pretty interesting because most people don't get it. And that's understandable. It's peculiar for most people that you're going to cry if the deities go away or that you're going to even bow down. That's a weird thing for most people in America to even understand. Even some people in this room are like, what? Where, it's understandable.
Yeah,
But
then
you
I
developed an
yeah,
attachment.
then I understood why he was, crying for the deity, and all the devotees that they were taking care of the deities. They were crying when we were leaving, like really crying. I'm like, what? And then I understood when they left.
Can you explain the attachment to a deity?
Yeah, if you can live without them, you depend on them. Your life, your soul depend on them.
I'm looking at faces.
And then they left, and months later, my only contact with Krishna was those deities, the deities, and this devotee. That was all my connection to Krishna consciousness. And then months later, the devotees from the temple here in Kali, they call me and they say, look, there's a guru, there's a Swami that is coming to Kali, and we would like to do a program at your place. And I said, okay. So we arranged everything. And that day, the Swami was coming. So many devotees started to come, like hundreds. coming in. And then, oh my God, who is coming? And then finally, the car came with the Swami, and all the peacocks started to sing very loud, very loud.
The peacocks.
The peacocks. It was night. It was like 7 p.m. It was already dark, and they started singing. And then the Swami came down. It was Jayapataka Swami.
Wow.
And the first thing he did was he went straight to the altar, and he was in the wheelchair already. And he stayed in front of the altar like for 10 minutes, like kind of understanding everything what was going on in the place, happening in the place. And then he gave a beautiful class, and he stayed till midnight. He didn't want to leave. There were so many devotees, so many people came to see him. And he said, I told him the story. Then the next day he called me, said, tell me about you, tell me everything. And he said, you should get deities.
You should get deities.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I said, okay, but I'm very attached to them.
You're very attached
My
to those
deities.
ones that were taken.
Yeah. And then a year after I went to India, I was in Mayapur. And one devotee came to me and said, are you Shaina? At the time I was Shaina. Are you Shaina? He said, yeah. Oh, Guru Maharaj wants to talk to you.
So he called you while you were in India.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, no, he's not in Mayapur. He's in Delhi at the hospital. He's going to have a surgery tomorrow morning. He asked me to call him tonight.
Wow.
And I said, okay. So I called him, and he said, did you get the deities? And I said, no, Maharaj. I didn't get the deities because I was attached. I was not planning to get deities.
Right.
And he said, did you get the deities? I said, no. So he said, so you get the deities and you come visit me.
Wow.
At the hospital.
He told you to get any deities?
Gornitai. So I got the deities, went to Delhi, to the hospital. And he asked for the deities. Give me the deities. I'm gonna take the deities. And so he took the deities. He worshipped the deities for a couple days. And then he called me. And then I went to. He was already at the house, not at the hospital. And he asked me, "Do you want Krishna to be here?" And then I said,
You want Krishna to be in the
"The
deities?
deities." I said, "Yeah."
Like, is that a trick question?
And he said, if you have to understand, if you don't feed the deities one day, I'm gonna be starving.
He will personally be starving.
Yeah.
Well,
And then he did like a little ritual, and he gave me the small deities we have here.
have you been feeding those deities? I'm just checking up. Just making sure.
Every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I brought them. They're supposed to be temporary deities because our plan is to get maybe bigger size Gornitai deities. But they have been here for the last, I think, 5 years, 6 years.
It's sort of getting permanent.
Yeah.
Anyway, we love it here and we want to come back. Can we?
Please, this is your home.
Thank you. Syama Ashrama in Kali, Colombia. Thank you, Shyamasundari. We really appreciate everything you do. It's really focused and really renounced. And it takes a lot for people to, this is their home. Bunch of people showing up. You don't know them, doing their thing. And you make us feel so welcome. Thank you. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmadatam Nena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual masters, who have opened my eyes, which were blinded by darkness, with the ointment of knowledge. Because Stu, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You were so silent back there. Thought you were going to ask some questions too, but I will say that it's almost worth mentioning a little something about deities, and I'd like you to ask or mention some things, because again, if you've been around a while, you get it. The deity, you put up the altar, but if you're new to it, the deities can seem sort of foreign. How would you explain a deity to someone brand new to this practice? Seems like a doll. You're gonna worship a doll. You're attached to a doll. That's what it looks like to me. Metal doll, marble doll.
Yeah. So the idea is in yoga, the idea is how are we going to concentrate the mind or focus the mind? The mind is going so many different places, and because it's going so many different places, we're taking in so much information. Our mind's becoming informed by that information, and all of that information is causing us our stress and our anxiety and our suffering in life. Identification with the body and misidentification with what will make us happy in life. But it's hard for us. It's hard for us to just sit and control the mind. Because our senses are engaged, right? Because our eyes are there and our ears are there, and they're always taking in new information.
Right.
What comes through the senses tends to be where our mind goes. And so while there is meditation where you cut off all the senses, to do that well takes a person that's really quite already adept at yoga. It's the rare person. So the yogic texts, these very ancient, timeless texts, they describe, here's a way to practice yoga where you can meditate on form, where you can engage your senses externally so that internally your mind will go in the direction that you want it to go. And so through, for thousands of years, many, many thousands of years actually, there's been this practice where taking the description, and we're going to actually today we'll be reading, say, like about the description of Krishna, his form, what it looks like, right? Uddhava is going to start to tell Vidura, he's going to start to glorify Krishna's beauty, right?
This story does tie into your explanation, actually.
Yeah. And so when you look at the descriptions, say, of Krishna in books like the Bhagavatam, then you can make a form like that. And we'll see in Bhagavatam, the great yogi Narada speaks to the boy yogi Dhruva. He describes the yoga that he should perform. This is where you should go to do it. This is the mantra that you should meditate on. This is how you control your breath, and then make a form, of Lord Vishnu, and meditate on that form. Give something for the senses to engage in. So the deity worship or the temple worship is the idea is that when there's a form there, and when that form is made with beauty, and when you engage in the seva, the rituals, those rituals they're all about cultivating a certain mood, a mood of service done with love. And so these rituals are done, regularly on a daily basis. Like when he said, if you don't feed every day, I'm going to go hungry, right? So the idea is that any yoga that's done regular, daily, steadily, like they say, little drops of water wear away the stone. So our consciousness which tends to be very focused on this illusory idea that I'm going to find happiness through external things, and I need to compete for those resources for happiness, and I get in friction with other people. The yogi can focus the mind on this meditation, on the deity, and engage the senses, engage the eyes, engage the ears, engage the hands, and so on. And these rituals are full of beauty, where you're offering incense, you're offering fragrant oils, beautiful flowers, and so on. That the mind and the senses become accustomed that I find my happiness, I find beauty in this service, in serving God. That and you begin to let go of where you're searching for beauty and happiness in external things. And again, if it's done every day, day by day by day by day, you begin to feel a real connection to God in that form. And that's something that a materialist can't understand, right?
Yeah, and it's not any random form. There's specific forms that are the deity. And at the very least, we can understand, like, because some people will argue, well, God is everywhere. Why do you need a deity? Well, if God is everywhere, he's also in the deity.
Well,
You
not
know what I
only
mean?
that, yeah, but like, and we've shared this example before, but it's like, one analogy that's given is like, there's water in the earth, like if you dig down and dig a well, but it's really hard work, to dig that hard, dig that deep through all the different layers and layers of rock and stuff. It's really major work to get water by digging a well. But if you go to a pond, it's right there on the surface. And so what these yogis say is that, to reach God everywhere, to reach God within the heart, again, it's the rare person that has the mind that's controlled enough to do that. But when you walk into the temple and you see the deity right there, it's like water just on the surface of the earth, like a pond or something like that. You can connect immediately. And it takes some faith. But those that you can see the Shyamasundari's story is really about, she was a yoga teacher. Her and her friend Veronica, they were both, they were teaching yoga there in Kali. And then this Bhakti-yogi wandered in there, this person who had another depth of understanding of spirituality, another depth of understanding of God. And just by his association, the two of them became like, whoa, this form and this deity. And with, the association of a devotee, like this person's impressive. You begin to open up to new possibilities. And he's like, yeah, well, my spirituality is coming through my connection with this deity, with this form. Okay, well then let's learn more about that. And when your mind and your heart are open, then you can begin to experience something that you would never experience if you didn't open up to it. And so I think she felt that, and her friend Veronica felt that, and they started that ashram. And so it transformed from, I think the people there that are visiting can feel it, it's nice. There's lots of beautiful, nice yoga studios, and that's a great thing. But there's something really special going on there,
Yeah,
and you
for
can feel
sure.
it. Right?
You feel that when you walk up. We come here early in the morning to set up, and the morning songs are happening there, the Mangala Artik,
Mm-hmm.
and you just feel it in that energy. I feel it.
Yeah.
It's special. And another thing I want to bring up, because people say, well, you're attached to a form. Is this a bad thing, a black magic thing? You can also tell by the results of something. You're attached to the
Right.
form of the deity and the puja and the worship, but also it's affecting you. Like, it's all of a sudden, it's bringing out all your good qualities, which are sort of locked in. And so the worship of the deity and the practice and the devotional practice and the chanting, etc., it starts to bring forth what's already inside you. And that's how you can tell you're doing something right. You're losing the attachment to things that you're attached to that have not been serving you. You're
Yeah.
losing the attachment to these things that have been sort of degrading your consciousness, and your consciousness also starts to feel incredibly high, incredibly uh, polished. And so that's also the result too. So uh, anyway, Sherry's got the
You can put it
camera
to
in
the
my
test.
face. And okay, stop, paparazzi, stop. Sorry. So we're on the third canto, and
Chapter 2.
chapter 2, and
Yeah.
text.
Well, we read texts 1 through 6, and we spoke about those the last 2 shows.
Yeah.
And they were showing that they spoke of, Vidura met Uddhava, this very special devotee of Krishna. As soon as he mentioned Krishna and asked about how's Krishna and how's Krishna's family, the Yadus, and all that, he just went into, he couldn't control his deep spiritual devotional sentiments, and he was kind of
Yeah.
stunned, and tears came to his eyes. The genuine, pure love of the heart, the love for God, that's the nature of the soul. If for
Mm.
him that's not something deep down buried, it's right there. And so as soon as Krishna's name was mentioned, everything, he went into these symptoms, and it took him a while to come out of it, but then he came out of it. And now we're going to hear him speak. And I think what we can do today is maybe I could just summarize some of these verses, and then you and I can read some more and read a commentary or so.
Sure.
Okay. So in verses 7 through 11, what Uddhava says is, he says, Krishna is like the sun. The sun, it's daytime in one place on the earth, and it's nighttime in the other place. The sun comes, it rises in the morning, and it does its arc, and then it goes down, and then it disappears in the evening. But it's not like the sun disappeared. It's just that the sun's no longer in our presence, right? And it's somewhere else, right? The light is shining somewhere else. And so Uddhava says Krishna is like the sun. He rises in one place. Now he's set here, on the earth. He came and he rose, and now he's set. And we're unfortunate, we're kind of in darkness now that he's gone. And and he's kind of like, and you asked me about his family, the Yadus. Well, what can I say except like the Yadus were not able to fully appreciate just how special he was. And in the Yadu dynasty, we can understand these are like extremely exalted people, but I think what that means is that they understood him. They didn't, you see, because Uddhava's a really rare character, that he was from Dwarka, where the Yadus lived, and they all loved Krishna. But their love for him was not as intimate as the love of the residents of Vrindavan, where Krishna grew up, where the most intimate love of God is shared, where you forget that God is God, and you see him entirely as like he's a boy, but because, and this is again the very esoteric side of bhakti. When we talk about rasa, the varieties of divine love, that love, if you're going to have the deepest feelings of God as a lover, or God as a friend, or even God as my child, you have to forget that this is God, right? Otherwise, there's too much space between the two of you.
Mm.
And so what Uddhava, he's saying that the Yadus, they couldn't really appreciate Krishna Bhagavan, that beautiful boy, And then, and he's starting to speak about him, he begins to glorify Krishna's beauty. And so text 12 through 14 of the second chapter of the third canto speak about Krishna's beauty. You want to read? You want to? Maybe we can go back and forth.
Sure. So here's text 12. The Lord appeared in the mortal world by his internal potency, Yoga Maya. He came in his eternal form, which is just suitable for his pastimes. These pastimes were wonderful for everyone, even for those proud of their own opulence, including the Lord himself in his form as the Lord of Vaikuntha. Thus, his, Sri Krishna's, transcendental body is the ornament of all ornaments.
All the demigods from the upper, lower, and middle universal planetary systems assembled at the altar of the Rajasuya sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira. After seeing the beautiful bodily features of Lord Krishna, they all contemplated that he was the ultimate dexterous creation of Brahma, the creator of human beings.
The damsels of Braj, that's the cowherd girls of Vrindavan, after pastimes of laughter, humor, and exchanges of glances, were anguished when Krishna left them. They used to follow him with their eyes, and thus they sat down with stunned intelligence and could not finish their household duties.
Okay. So there's a lot in those those three verses right there, but there's a term that's used in other places for Krishna that was in that 12th text, what is it? Bhushana. That Bhushana means an ornament, right? Like some jewelry or something like that. And generally people wear jewelry to beautify themselves, right? A lady will try to find the right earrings, that she feels complements and enhances her beauty. But it's described that Krishna is so beautiful that when you put an ornament on him, he makes the ornament look more more beautiful, right? It's just his beauty is just kind of like unparalleled. And so two examples here are given of that. One, when Krishna was at a very big important social function, the Rajasuya sacrifice of Maharaj Yudhishthira. It was when Yudhishthira became king, Arjuna's brother Yudhishthira became king. There was a big,
ritual.
Big ritual that he did as king on behalf of all the people, and everyone came to that. All the kings came to that. All of the it's described here, the demigods themselves came to that. Now the demigods are considered to be like super beautiful, like they're like crazy, insane, like gorgeous, like we can't contemplate on the earth. They were all looking at Krishna saying, and this isn't even correct, like, because it's not that Krishna was created by Brahma. Brahma creates all the forms in this world. Krishna's form is otherworldly. But just looking at Krishna and saying, my God, Brahma really did a good job on him because he is so gorgeous. I can't believe it, So his beauty, I guess maybe the first thing that if you know Krishna, when you think of him, the first thing you just can't help but think about just how beautiful he is. So that's one example. And then the next example is the gopis of Vrindavan.
I was thinking also, I wonder if it's true that wherever you worship Krishna, all the demigods are there. We just can't necessarily perceive them. When we go into the ashram in the morning and they're singing and doing their artik in the morning, are the demigods present and witnessing?
Well, I mean, they're present and witnessing in any case, right? This is something, I think it's an Indian thing. Maybe an Indian correspondent around can help us with this. I think there must be some Hindi saying or something like that, but the idea that you're never alone, right? That like the gods are witnessing everything, You've heard that kind of thing before?
I've heard it. They're always witnessing, like wherever you're doing. Aravind, you got any feedback on
Anything
that?
for us, Aravind?
Aravind. Indians here. The demigods are always watching, sort of like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
They know if you've been doing good or bad things.
Well, but this is the point. This is the consciousness of a spiritual person. Is like a person that's not so spiritually deep. They do feel alone, right? The person that's very spiritually deep never feels alone. It's described like Prabhupada, even like he would always, he gives really interesting descriptions of how he came to America all alone, right? He had no money. He didn't know anybody here. He's an old man. He's never been out of India, and he drops in the middle of New York City, and it's tough, you know. But he said, I never felt alone. I always felt my guru's presence, you know, at every moment, you know, or the presence of the devas, or and especially the presence of Krishna in one's heart. That like, I think also people say something like you can understand the character of a person, like how they behave when they're alone. You know, when nobody else is watching, you're not putting on a show for anyone. But for the person that's like spiritually deep, they feel the presence of God, or if you can say they feel the presence of the gods and goddesses. They may feel the presence of their guru or deeply spiritual people who've influenced them at every moment, and it kind of elevates their behavior and their thoughts. So in one sense, you know, the devas are always here, right?
Yeah. People have been writing on the board. Demigods like Agni are present everywhere the element of fire is. Surya sees where the sun shines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You know,
Also-
and you hear, I was going to say, you hear about that like in different spiritual traditions. You know, let's take Native Americans, you know, where they had, remember that a long time ago we read a little bit from that,
Yeah.
what was it, Black Elk, right?
Yeah.
And he was describing the Great Spirit, which is, when you hear him describe it, he's describing the Paramatma, right? So you know, but also feeling the earth is a person, the sun is a person, you know, which may sound naive to some people, but actually as you start getting deeply spiritual, it makes perfect sense. And when you start to think and live that way, it begins to transform your character.
All right.
So, you know, and then that example of the gopis of Vrindavan is interesting, right? He gave two examples. He's saying the demigods, even they who are so beautiful, they were stunned by Krishna's beauty. Then the gopis of Vrindavan, they are more beautiful than the devas, right? And Krishna's beauty just, it left them, like, you know, it says, after pastimes of laughter, humor, and exchanges of glances, right? This was the deepest pleasure, the deepest enjoyment, to exchange glances, to exchange some humor, some laughter with Krishna. And then Krishna leaves, you know, Krishna, you know, and if, you know, if you read again the esoteric side of bhakti, it's Krishna coming together and then separating, coming together and separating. You know, we discussed that once, that there's the embankment of union and the embankment of separation, and the flow of bhakti goes between those two, right? The deep spiritual emotions that are the most satisfying experience that there is for the soul, it's flowing through the embankments of union and separation. So these gopis, 1 minute they're with Krishna, they're exchanging laughter, they're exchanging humor, they're exchanging glances, and then he moves on and you know, to his next pastime, and then they feel that separation, and their eyes follow him, because that beauty is just so powerful, right?
It's very similar to what we were talking about with Shyamasundari. You know, she was a yoga teacher for many years. And for generally most yogis, they study things like Yoga Sutras, or they get or Upanishads, and they get inspired by, like, yeah, there's a spirit. And I grew up in my own particular church or synagogue. And I understand that God is everything. God is not necessarily has form. And so there's this idea of a higher energy. And then what happens is you get to this point where someone gives you some information, almost like you're seeing a celebrity on television on a regular basis. And that person plays a role or a character on a TV show. And then you meet that person in real life, and you actually realize, oh, they have a real personality, and they have a real, they have real family members, and you start to get to know them in a more intimate way. Or sometimes another analogy would be like, you're in a village, and on top of the hill is a castle, and the castle represents power, and this is where the king lives. But you go by it, and it's a significant place. And as you go closer to that castle, you can enter the castle. And there's actually beings in the castle that have personality. And so what we're doing is here, it's not like it's any different. The castle in one sense is power, you know, or but what's happening is now we're understanding there's an intimacy behind it, and there's a personality behind it, and we can actually interact with that personality.
Right.
So it's like in Krishna Bhakti, it's giving you this different vantage point, or this inner circle that you can get into, and it does all those things the outer thing does too. You want to focus your mind here. Now you focus your mind deeply on this form. You refine that form. You can actually serve that form. And I think when you do get into deity worship, there is something that magically happens. You get attached by the idea of serving a form. It may not make any sense if you're standing on the outside, but I think any of us who've rendered service to a deity, we understand, like, we get attached by, like she was saying, cooking for a deity. How can that do? But you do. And then you want to eat the remnants of, that food was offered, that sanctified food. Now I want to eat that food. Or you think, it's very cold. I have to put on a little chudder or a little something warm for the deity. It sounds weird. It all sounds a lot. It's hard to do it because it does sound weird. And I always tell the story about the first time I went to a temple and I was meeting the temple president, and he had this, "Oh, come on, Siri, bug off. I'm sick of my phone listening to everything I say." I don't know if you could hear that, but she's like butts into my conversations on a regular basis. But anyway, I was new devotee, and I went to the temple, and the guy who ran the temple looked pretty normal, had hair, had kids, and he had pictures on his desk. And I sat there talking to him, and like I was getting comfortable when I pick up the picture, and I thought it'd be a picture of his kids. It's a picture of the deities. It was so shocking. Like, you have a picture of those stone statues. Like, you're really, I mean, I get the philosophy. I get the singing the songs. I get we're not the body, but you really love these deities. Like, and it's hard thing to explain, but once you get it, you get it.
Well, there's a story I could tell now, a quick little story, an interesting one. But you see, because what's happening here in Bhagavatam is Uddhava, an intimate associate of Krishna. Again, Bhagavatam and the broader Vedic literature is going to describe that the divine, or God, can be understood in three features. There's the all-pervasive energy. There's God within the heart. These are all valid. They're true. God exists in these ways. Now, some people only know God in those ways, or only want to know God in those ways. But ultimately, there's the personal form as well. So Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman is the all-pervasive. Paramatma is God within the heart. And Bhagavan means the personal form of God, from which all else comes from. That's what the Bhagavatam is going to say, right? Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam, that everything comes from that form, the personal form. But, it's due to, we're all scarred, we're damaged, we're dented, we've gone through so many different experiences, so many ups and downs, so many heartbreaks, so many different annoyances based on relationships with other
personal
people.
relationships gone south.
Yeah,
right?
Yes. And so it can make us very hesitant. We due to all those scars, we develop a thick skin. We develop, we build barriers. We develop we play psychological games to kind of defend ourselves. We develop pride. We develop, we protect ourselves, and we develop certain prejudices, you could say, or biases. And so it's not unusual for people to be averse to hearing about a personal form of God. I can accept God if God is like an unlimited energy, and I am that energy too.
Right.
But I don't want to hear about some guy, who's like got something over me.
I'm sick of guys
Man.
doing their guy thing.
But there's this story. I thought it was a really interesting story that was told by Vaisheshika Prabhu, who we had on the show back in the fall. And he said in his home once, he walked in his home and he saw a little bird had flown into his kitchen, right through the window, and was in his kitchen. And he said, "Oh, poor little bird, let me get it out so it can be free again, so it can fly and exhibit its full life potential." And so it's not easy to get a bird out of your house when it's stuck in there sometimes, so he's trying to either capture the bird in his hand or kind of direct it out the window. He's opening all the windows, he's trying to get out, but the bird is totally paranoid, The bird, every
Yeah.
time he starts to come in the bird's direction, the bird flies off. Now the bird's in like the living room, and then he's trying to get it out of the living room. Now the bird's back in the kitchen, and it's going back and forth. And finally he got it, and he kind of directed it, and he got it to the windowsill of an open window. And he said the bird turned around and looked at him. And he said he could feel he could feel the heart of the bird. And he could feel the bird was looking at him saying, now I'm free despite all of your attempts to trap me. I'm going to break free right now, and there's nothing he can do about it. And the bird flew out the window, right? And he said, that's like us. Like it's like God's just trying to help us. Krishna's just trying to help us. But we're like, I don't need you. Like you're just trying to trap me. There's a paranoia about the personal form of God, when really, and this is where this is going to go now. Uddhava's describing Krishna. He describes his, unparalleled beauty. That he's more beautiful than the Devas are stunned by his beauty. The gopis are stunned by his beauty. But now he's going to describe Krishna's character. There's going to be a whole group of verses that we'll read. We'll read one today, but tomorrow we'll read more that speak about his character. Oh, what is this? Some big judge going to be judging me? I'm trying to be happy in this world, and I got this God that's like judging me for my behavior and going to punish me. I don't need that in my life.
Strike me down with a bolt of thunder.
I don't need that guilt trip and all that in my life. No, you have to hear from someone like Uddhava about the character of Krishna. That this isn't someone that gets off on power. That this isn't someone that has any inclination to make another suffer. People when they sometimes when whether they're scholars or people like looking at Hinduism or whatever, they call Krishna the god of love, right?
Yes.
Like you have the goddess of fortune, and you have
the god of fire and the god of love.
There's the creator and the destroyer, and Krishna's the god of love. And and I think they say that because he has his pastimes with the gopis, so he's like a lover. But really, I would say a better way to understand that he's the god of love is that this is Krishna's character. The nature of Krishna's character is that the only thing that moves him, the only thing that interests him, the only thing that he is personally engaged in is love, right? He's not, you can't buy him with your wealth. You can't, there's no way to influence him except through love. And that's his only interest. And so that's going to start to come out. Krishna's, how he is not only, unparalleled in beauty, but how he is the God of love, how he is moved only by love, and how that nature of him manifests with incredible kindness, incredible mercy. Tomorrow I probably will read about a very famous verse comes up about how, he was attacked in the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Just devious way, in his most vulnerable form as a little infant. And the nature of his reaction to that attack, it becomes very interesting, right? What
attack?
The attack of Putana.
Oh, Putana.
What attack are you talking about?
Who's attacking Krishna?
Putana attacked him. But we'll get to that tomorrow. But now this verse, text 15, it begins to open the door to understanding a bit about Krishna's, what moves him.
By the way, ladies, if you think you're getting back in the dating circuit, we highly recommend the next guy you date have ankle bells, carry a flute, and have a peacock feather in his hair. Fall in love with Krishna first.
Okay.
You can trust him. Okay.
Text 15, you want to read it?
Text 15, the personality of Godhead, the all-compassionate controller of both the spiritual and material creations, is unborn. But when there is friction between his peaceful devotees and persons who are in the material modes of nature, he takes birth just like fire, accompanied by the Mahatattva.
Yeah. So this is another very interesting analogy that Uddhava was sharing here. He's saying Krishna's God, it means he's everywhere, right? It means that there's no place that he's not present. He's all pervasive. In the same way that fire is all pervasive within wood, right? If you have a big log of wood, the fire is like all throughout that wood. But
It's a concept. It's a Bhakti or Native American concept too. That there's fire in wood.
it's a scientific fact. I mean, you can
Oh,
see
is
it comes right out.
it?
Yeah.
Is it?
I mean,
Duh.
there's heat in that wood, and therefore, when you rub two pieces of wood together, the friction brings out the fire, right? You can see it. And so he's saying in a similar way, Krishna is everywhere, but you don't see him manifest in his personal form. Fire's in the wood, but you don't always see the fire in the wood until there's some friction. And in the same way, Krishna is everywhere, but he appears in his personal form when there's friction between the non-devotees and the devotees. In other words, when those that he loves, when those that love him get in some kind of trouble with people that don't, right? Then he appears personally for them. And nothing else is really of interest to him. That's why he appears. Right? It's saying something about his character, right? That like he could appear to like rule over others. He could appear for different reasons, but really the only thing that moves him is when he sees those that love me, they need me right now. And so he appears. So you want to read some of the commentary?
Sure. This is from verse 15. The devotees of the Lord are by nature peaceful because they have no material hankerings. A liberated soul has no hankering and therefore no lamentation. One who wants to possess also laments when they lose that possession. Devotees have no hankerings for material possessions and no hankerings for spiritual salvation. They are situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord as a matter of duty, and they do not mind where they are or how they have to act.
Okay. So,
But by the way,
yes.
that's a whole interesting concept. No hankerings, no lamentations. Well, what
Yes.
does that mean? You don't want anything?
You know, just this one sentence here, it explains a lot. But the devotees have no hankerings for, he mentions two things, material possessions, right? I want a bigger house, I want a car, I want more money, I want sex, I want whatever it might be. They have no hankerings for material possessions, and they have no hankerings for spiritual salvation. So that means, spiritual salvation means the freedom from the sufferings of this world, right? So this is, again, Bhagavatam it identifies three different motivations in life. I want material things, that's called karma. I want freedom from material suffering. That's the path of jnana, right? Like the renunciation of everything material, so I'll stop suffering because I see that suffering comes with enjoyment in this world. That's how it works. So the karmi, the one with the least depth of vision, thinks, oh, this world is meant for my enjoyment. I want material possessions. The jnani says, no, I get that all material possessions, all material enjoyment comes with suffering. I just want spiritual salvation. I want to be free of it all. I want to renounce it all and go and become peaceful. And but the devotee's not interested in any of those. So there's jnana, karma, jnana, and bhakti. And the Bhagavatam is the book that again and again and again and again, throughout its 18,000 verses, is just going to keep establishing that the whole point in life is to come to this level of bhakti where you're not interested in material things and you're not interested in escaping material suffering. You become motivated purely by love. So when it's saying here that they have no material hankering and no lamentation, it's talking about material desire that they're free of. It doesn't mean they have no spiritual desires, some spiritual, feelings and emotions, but it means it's not the material things that they've recognized that happiness is not coming through any kind of material gain. And even if you get some material gain, it's like two sides of the same coin. If I give you a coin, if I give you the heads on the coin, you're naturally going to get the tails on the coin. And so if I give you something material through which you enjoy, we also know through that same possession you're going to suffer. Even if it's just when you lose it. And so recognizing that, the Gyanis say, let's just not possess anything. That's the antithesis, but there's a synthesis, and the synthesis is that ultimately there's spiritual emotion, spiritual desire, you know, and that's where Bhagavatam, and that's where all the yoga literatures, it's climaxing, it's pinnacle, and that's found here in Bhagavatam.
That's it. That's it. That went by quick. Thanks everybody for joining us. You know, I never got to read our spiritual bucket list. We're gonna have to hold that.
Okay.
You want to tell me about your spiritual bucket list, things you want to accomplish in this lifetime? Some people did write in. They wrote, I want to go pilgrimage. They want to chant 16 rounds. They want to go to Tirupati. Parmananda's got a few spiritual bucket lists I was going to share. And Amalini said she wants to see Krishna personally.
Oh,
she keeps the bar very, very high.
Amalini's there, yeah.
Amalini, she's smart. Why not pick that one? You can pick anything.
From the mouth of babes.
Anyway, thanks for everybody for joining us. Continue our transcendental retreat here. By the way, I'm putting all of our satsangs on Instagram Live. So if you're gonna check in with us here, just go to my Instagram account, Raghunath Yogi, and you can see our satsangs, our kirtans. It's just fun during the course of the day. Thanks everybody for checking in. Mara, anything else going on we should know about?
The 6:30 a.m. Asana class is canceled today, but Trevor Vaughn is teaching a 8 a.m. class. And we're doing, awesome. Yeah, and we're doing Sweet Baby Krishna tonight, right? At 7?
Sweet Baby Krishna tonight at 7. And thanks everybody for joining us. It's a beautiful day for a beautiful day.
Oh, and Bhakti Recovery Group, sorry, at 1 o'clock.
And Bhakti Recovery Group. Jai Shri Krishna Bola Jai Radhe.